Hey guys, LP here from Techno Buffalo and welcome back for yet another very exciting game review. This time we're looking at a sequel to one of my favorite first-person shooters, BioShock. I went and got the PS3 version of the game mainly because I got a cheap deal out of a GameStop trade offer. So that's what we're going to be looking at. They tried to sell me the special deluxe edition of the game with a vinyl of the first game's soundtrack and a bunch of other crap, but I decided that the game is going to have to stand on its own two legs before I buy into the merchandise. 3 years ago in 2007, producer Kevin Levine and his 2K Boston team introduced a new kind of first-person shooter. In between the action, the game tackled social and moral issues and put the players in front of some pretty tricky choices. But the single most interesting thing about the first game was the world in which it took place. That world lies leagues below the sea and it's called Rapture. Rapture is a beautiful Art Deco city, an underwater utopia created by Andrew Ryan. The city was created as an escape from social, political, and religious anxiety of a post-World War II ridden world. As you probably know, not everything went according to plan in Rapture. Its inhabitants became addicted to genetic modification, turning the majority of the population into disfigured shadows of their former selves. 10 years have gone by since the first game and the city has fallen ever deeper into social and moral decay. A new antagonist, Dr. Sophia Lamb, has risen from the ashes of Andrew Ryan, this time with an imposing altruistic ideology, with some keen relations to Marxism. Turns out that Dr. Lamb's idea of turning Rapture into an underwater socialist colony has gone a bit awry and things are worse than ever. As you know, the first game was a great success and BioShock 2 has a massive set of shoes to fill. Especially because this time around it's not developed by 2K Boston, but a subsidiary developer called 2K Marin. So the game definitely has some Big Daddy sized shoes to fill. So, in the second game you play as a Big Daddy, clad in his deep-sea scuba suit, and this dynamic brings a few changes to the gameplay. First off, your right hand is now equipped with a pretty big drill. I'm not sure what the practical applications are for a drill of this size, but the drill does work pretty well for making mincemeat of the inhabitants of Rapture, and other violentful retards. Your left hand is now free to use for atom-induced plasmids, so now you can shoot your double-barrel shotgun and throw lightning bolts with your lefty. The story of BioShock 2 takes you on a fairly linear journey towards discovering the fate of a little sister, who proclaims herself to be the protagonist's daughter. Along the way, you get some help from some inhabitants of Rapture who have yet not succumbed to the fate of the Splicers.
I've located a new train car, but the station's still locked down and we're not alone in here. I see a shadow in the security booth.
Most of the story is unraveled much like the first game through recorded audio logs that you will find scattered around Rapture. The narrative of the sequel is quite a bit more straightforward and tangible compared to the first game, which was more of an unraveling mystery. The novel appeal of the city is gone. Rapture itself is pretty much the same. A little bit more rundown, but discovering the wonders of the city is pretty much left in the first game. The city is also a bit more linear, and there's not much exploring you can do. A minor complaint is that there's not much variation in the levels. The same shanty and decrepit scenery repeat itself mostly throughout the game, and setting aside a few scenic underwater shuffles, I would have liked to see some more variation between the levels. And no, there is no underwater gunplay, you just basically shuffle from one place to the next. Being a Big Daddy brings its own set of responsibilities, and the little sister dynamic and harvesting Adam has gone through a significant change. After taking down a Big Daddy, you can now adopt a little sister to harvest Adam for you. And harvesting Adam from dead bodies always brings about a zone defense against hordes of splicers who also want a taste of their drug of choice. Defending the little sisters can get a bit repetitive, but the trade-off reward of Adam, which enables new plasmids, makes harvesting dead corpses worthwhile. Another variation thrown into the mix are Big Sisters. And if you thought Big Daddies were hard to take down, Big Sisters are faster and more agile, and a huge pain in your metal-cladded ass. What the game lacks in storytelling and environmental versatility, it gains in gameplay mechanics. The new two-handed assault scheme with weapons in one hand and plasmids in the other work extremely well, and make the fighting that much more interesting. And I can tell you that about 95% of BioShock 2 is about shooting up the neighborhood with various weapons and plasmids. Most of the plasmids are familiar from the first game, but there are some new interesting ones as well. The Scout plasmid allows you to survey the area as a free-roaming ghost. You can now hypnotize and befriend the Splicers to fight along your side. You can also call in security bots, which are a definite help when defending Little Sisters. The amount of enemies you encounter in the game will overwhelm you at times, and it seems that there's not a moment of peace. You'll be attacked from all 3 dimensions, and you will not survive if you don't use your weapons and plasmids wisely. And recruiting help will play a bigger role in BioShock 2 when trying to keep the little sister safe. I played through the game in hard mode with Vita Chambers switched off, and I can tell ya, I had my work cut out for me. The game will challenge even the most experienced FPS fans, and you will find yourself scavenging every corpse that comes along, or corpse that you create, and looting is essential in BioShock 2, because ammo is scarce, and every coin you find will count as you are in constant need of buying health packs and everfills. While I'm not that keen on the low ammo situation in first-person shooters in general, it does serve its desperation-inducing purpose in BioShock 2. Hacking has also received a nice update in the sequel, and has been simplified to the point where it's now possible to hack security bots for your aid during an ongoing gunfight. But I urge some caution here because I also found that it's still quite easy to fail at hacking and have the trap spring in your own face. Overall, the gameplay mechanics have been refined from the first game, and BioShock 2 is fun to play. Graphics-wise, BioShock 2 runs on the exact same Unreal 3 game engine as the first game. While the game looks good, after 3 years, I really would have liked to have seen some improvements to the new underwater adventure. It seems that they've even used the same texture packs from the first BioShock, some of which are a bit soft and low res. And I think some of the character models could have also used some tuning up. I also have to bring to light that the reflective surfaces, for example the water effects, are questionably low res on the PS3 version. On the PC with DirectX 10 support, they look great, but on the PS3, not so much. The frame rate is mostly stable, but it will start to dip towards the end of the game, where the action on the screen gets increasingly hectic. The game is locked at a maximum of 30 frames per second, but you are given the possibility of unlocking the frame rate. But I cannot recommend it because on the PS3, it will result in a quite erratic frame rate and some serious screen tearing. So I recommend leaving the frame rate lock as is. Loading times on the console versions of BioShock can be a bit lengthy. It will take over a minute to load up a level, which I think in today's standards is a bit long. Overall, from the standpoint of graphics and performance, I'm a bit disappointed with the PS3 version of BioShock 2, mainly because there's very little improvement to be seen from the first game. The PC version of the game of course runs at a 60 plus frame rate, but the port over to the PC is a bit sloppy. The widescreen resolution is achieved by cropping a 4:3 image, and the textures of the game are adequate for console resolutions, but not quite adequate for high-res PC gaming. The PC version of BioShock 2 is a testament to the fact that game consoles are currently holding back the advancements in PC gaming graphics. From an artistic visual standpoint, the game excels. The Art Deco architecture and decor of Rapture really set the mood for the underwater utopia, or dystopia, depending on the perspective. Overall, the game is not as impressive visually as the first game, but is still one of the best looking Unreal Engine 3 games made to date. The atmosphere of the game is nicely complemented by the music and sound design, which is as good as in the first game. The shrieks and agonizing wailings of the splicers will send a chill down your spine and annoy the hell out of your spouse. This is confirmed. BioShock 2 also comes with a multiplayer component, which is easy to consider as a bit unnecessary. The story-driven first game really did well without the multiplayer, but I'm guessing that the trend of games today is that no matter what the game, it needs to have multiplayer. If you play a lot of hardcore multiplayer games like Modern Warfare 2, I'm pretty sure you won't trade it off to play the multiplayer of BioShock 2. The game has all your standard multiplayer modes with a Rapturian twist. I did enjoy the Capture the Little Sister mode, which really brings the defensive father dynamics nicely into the mix. The game also has a progression and leveling system much like that of Modern Warfare. The Trials system lets you level up your weapons and plasmids by completing tasks within the game. The Big Daddy suit is also included in the multiplayer modes, and it is fun to play with, but a bit annoying to play against. The suit really unsets the balance because, for example, in deathmatch modes, it seems to be quite random who gets to find the suit and wield it. The plasmids do introduce an interesting dynamic into the multiplayer games, but they're mainly only supportive to the primary weapon. To come to think of it, the multiplayer in BioShock 2 reminds me of Time Splitters, which was a fast-paced and chaotic multiplayer game from back in the day. Overall, the multiplayer component of BioShock 2 is fine, but you probably won't find me playing it. So how did the sequel to BioShock stack up against the expectations? Overall, BioShock 2 is a good game, but ultimately, like many sequels, it gets overshadowed by its predecessor. The world of Rapture is starting to seem a bit stale after very little of anything significant is introduced to the environment itself. Luckily, gameplay-wise, it's fun as ever, and you will play through the game solely because of the sheer fun of playing. If you have the option, the PC version is the one to get. Nothing beats a mouse and keyboard combo in a first-person shooter, and the PC version also looks best, and the high frame rate makes it that much better. A lot was expected from BioShock 2, and for the most part, it meets those expectations. But still, the game left me with a feeling that it could have been more. I give BioShock 2 an 8.8 for being a solid first-person shooter that keeps the BioShock franchise running strong towards most likely yet another sequel. That's about it for my review. Follow me on Twitter, LP signing out.